look in the mirror. No, not the polite mirror. Not the mirror that edits you so you can keep sleeping. I mean the brutal mirror. The one that shows your eyes when no one is clapping. The one that shows how tired you are from carrying people who would never carry you back. The one that reveals the quiet rage you swallow to stay nice. The wasted potential you keep postponing because you're still hoping someone will finally recognize you without you having to demand it. Here's the cold truth. Value is not something you announce. Value is something you enforce. And the moment you truly value yourself, the world doesn't suddenly love you more, no. It starts negotiating differently because it senses something terrifying. You're no longer available at a discount. When you stop needing people, you become scarce, and scarcity changes everything. The parasites vanish first. The pretenders lose interest. The manipulators can't breathe in your atmosphere anymore because your energy stops being a public resource and becomes private property. This isn't kindness. This is control. This is you finally locking the gates to your inner kingdom. If you're ready for that shift, comment. I move like power, not approval. Now let's talk about the first law. Self-valuation. Most people think self-worth is a feeling. That's why they're always trying to feel confident. But confidence is not a mood. It's a decision backed by behavior. Self-valuation isn't you telling yourself affirmations in the dark. It's you refusing to sit at tables where your presence is treated like background noise. Because the man who needs validation is already conquered. He's on a leash. He just calls it being understood. He's begging for external permission to exist. And when your worth depends on other people's approval, you don't have value. You have a price tag other people can bargain down. True self-value isn't arrogance. It's precision. It's the cold awareness of what you bring, and the ruthless refusal to offer it where it isn't respected. It's moving slower, speaking less, observing more, acting only when your advantage is real. Think of a king walking through a room. A king doesn't sprint to prove he matters. He doesn't explain his importance. He doesn't chase attention like a starving animal. He commands the room by simply existing in it, because his standards are felt before his words ever arrive. That's what self-valuation does. It turns your presence into gravity. And here's the psychology. People respect what they can't easily influence. When your emotions are controlled, your value multiplies. When you detach from the need to be liked, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability in power dynamics is lethal because it breaks people's ability to manage you. Comment. My silence is my weapon. Every time you choose self-value over validation, you harden your frame. Every time you walk away from disrespect, you teach the world your price. Not with speeches, not with drama, with action, with absence. Because the world doesn't give you what you deserve. It mirrors what you demand through standards. Now, the second law. The currency of power. Power is not given. Power is recognized. And recognition only happens when your value is undeniable. When your presence forces recalibration in every room you enter. Most men chase status symbols, titles, money, attention, the right car, the right photo, the right applause. But those are decorations. The true currency is rarer. Self-control. Self-control is the ability to choose silence when your ego is screaming for attention, to walk away when your pride demands a fight, to stay calm when everything is trying to pull a reaction out of you like a thief pulling gold from an open vault. Because every reaction costs energy, and energy is the raw material of dominance. People test you constantly through disrespect, doubt, delay. They want to see if your composure cracks. They want to see if they can push the right button and make you perform on command. Don't give them that. When you stop reacting, you start directing. When you become selective with your energy, you force others to play your tempo. And that's when you start understanding the real meaning of fear versus love. Not as cruelty, but as leverage. Fear makes people predictable. Predictability gives you control. So you build that aura, cold certainty. Quiet intensity. The unspoken message that says, I know my worth. I don't need your agreement. Comment. My energy is my empire. Now watch what happens when you withdraw your energy from the unworthy. Something strange. They start chasing what they can no longer control. That's the paradox of value. The less accessible you become, the more desirable you appear. Protect your time. Protect your focus. Protect your peace like sacred ground. Treat your presence like a privilege, and the world responds accordingly. Because real power doesn't announce itself, it radiates. And in the next part, we go deeper into the weapon kings use to win without chasing. Detachment. The art of being present without being owned. The moment you stop being a man people can pull, and become a force they must orbit. Detachment is where weak men panic and powerful men awaken. Most people hear the word detachment and imagine coldness, emptiness, isolation from life. That's because they've never experienced it as a weapon. Detachment is not apathy, it's strategy. It's the moment you stop being emotionally owned by outcomes you don't control. The man who masters detachment controls every battlefield because his emotions can no longer be used against him. Look closely at how most people live. They are puppets pulled by invisible strings. Approval, rejection, fear, desire. A compliment lifts them, an insult ruins their day. A delayed text destabilizes their mind. Their inner state is constantly negotiated by the outside world. That is not living. That is being managed. Detachment cuts the strings. When you detach, you don't chase outcomes. You control your input and let the world react. You stop begging reality to behave and start positioning yourself so that reality has no choice but to respond. This is where most men misunderstand passion. They think wanting something intensely makes them powerful. In truth, attachment is weakness disguised as motivation. The more you want something, the more predictable you become. And in the game of power, predictability is death. The stoic warrior walks through chaos like a ghost. Present, aware, untouchable. Detachment doesn't make you heartless. It makes you clear. It strips distortion from your perception. When hope and fear no longer hijack your thinking, you see people as they are, not as you wish them to be. And that clarity is dangerous, because now no one can manipulate you with promises or threats. No one can bait you with guilt or seduce you back into emotional slavery. They try, of course. They provoke. They test. They poke for reactions like thieves shaking a locked door. Smile internally. Stay still. Stillness is dominance. The moment they realize they can't move you, something shifts. They stop pushing and start orbiting. Detachment creates gravity. Gravity creates hierarchy. Comment. I master emotions. They don't master me. Understand this deeply. When you are no longer desperate for connection, approval, or validation, you become rare. And rarity terrifies the controlled. They'll label you cold, distant, arrogant. But those words are just the language of people describing what they can no longer manipulate. Every empire was built by men who could sacrifice comfort for control. You must be willing to do the same. Cut the noise. Silence the distractions. Let your calm become your intimidation. In a world addicted to impulse, The man who is unmoved becomes myth. Detachment doesn't erase emotion. It refines it. It turns emotional chaos into usable data. Every feeling becomes information, not instruction. Which leads us to something even more misunderstood. Controlled intimidation. True intimidation has nothing to do with volume. The loud man is compensating. The aggressive man is leaking insecurity. Real power lowers the temperature of the room. Controlled intimidation is psychological pressure without effort. It's the steady gaze that doesn't blink, the calm tone that doesn't rush, the posture that doesn't apologize for taking space. It's the silence that makes others feel the need to explain themselves. Perception shapes reality. And when you control perception, you control behavior. You don't need to threaten. You don't need to dominate openly. You weaponize subtlety. Every movement whispers, "I know more than I'm saying." When people can't read you, they start projecting their fears onto you. And fear fills gaps faster than truth ever could. This is manipulation without speaking. But here's the discipline most men lack: eliminating leaks, nervous habits, over-explaining, emotional outbursts, desperate gestures. These are cracks in the armor. The man of power is deliberate. He never explains too much, never seeks reassurance, never rushes to fill silence. Silence is a mirror. When you hold it steady, others reveal themselves. Comment: my silence commands the room. Intimidation isn't cruelty. It's structure. It establishes boundaries so only the worthy approach. When people sense you're not easily impressed, they treat your attention like a privilege. That's dominance in social dynamics. Appear approachable but remain unpredictable. Offer warmth strategically. Withdraw it instantly when respect falters. Let them feel the contrast. Conditioning works because the human brain learns faster from absence than presence. Remember this image. A lion doesn't roar to prove dominance. It looks once, and the jungle goes quiet. When your confidence is quiet and your discipline is loud, you stop being a man among men. You become a reference point, a standard others measure themselves against. And at the core of all this lies the foundation of cold power: emotional control. Emotional control is not about feeling nothing. It's about mastering everything. The world is designed to provoke you. Insults, rejection, delays, disrespect. Every one of them is a test, not of strength but of command. The man who reacts impulsively forfeits power instantly. Because emotions are tools, not masters. You can feel deeply and still act strategically. Your calm is not emptiness, it's containment. Power lives in the pause between stimulus and response. That pause is where domination is decided. Most men self-destruct in that gap. They speak too fast, act too soon, defend too hard. The Machiavellian uses that pause like a blade, cutting away impulse and leaving only intention. Every time you choose composure over chaos, you rise in the hierarchy of men. Anger becomes discipline. Fear becomes logic. Sadness becomes clarity. The weak seek relief through emotional expression. The strong find freedom in restraint. Comment: I feel deeply, but I act strategically. People will provoke you hoping to see your mask crack. Never let them. The one who stays calm when others panic becomes the axis everything spins around. This is why Stoicism was revered by emperors. Suffer without complaint. Win without celebration. Lose without collapse. Emotional control makes you immune to manipulation, because manipulation feeds on reaction. Remove the reaction, and the manipulator starves. And when you master expression tone, posture, breath, Eyes, you master perception. And perception is reality in the theater of power. In the next part, we enter the crucible where power is forged alone. Strategic isolation, where silence sharpens the blade, and solitude turns men into forces the world can no longer ignore. Isolation is where excuses die. Most men fear being alone because silence forces a confrontation they've been avoiding their entire lives. The truth of who they are without witnesses. Noise protects weakness. Distraction delays accountability. But power is born when there is nowhere left to hide. Strategic isolation is not loneliness. It's refinement. It's the crucible where ordinary men dissolve and formidable men are forged. The weak crave constant stimulation messages, validation, opinions, approval, because stillness exposes their emptiness. But the Machiavellian embraces isolation like a weapon, because solitude sharpens awareness and strips away illusion. When you are alone, truly alone, you finally hear your own mind without interference. And that's when you realize how much of your life has been dictated by noise, by expectations that were never yours, by manipulation so subtle you mistook it for normality. The man who can stand alone cannot be commanded. Strategic isolation isn't about cutting everyone off. It's about cutting dependency. You stop interacting out of need and start engaging by choice. You build internally before you expose externally. You become self-sufficient in thought, direction, and emotional regulation. Scarcity begins inside before it manifests outside. When you value your solitude, others start valuing your presence. Because scarcity creates demand. Absence creates intrigue. Silence creates weight. Comment. My solitude breeds strength. Every empire begins in isolation. Every revolution. Every breakthrough. The hours spent alone are not empty. They are laboratories of power, where emotion is converted into logic and pain is refined into precision. People love to say connection equals strength. That's a lie told by those who cannot survive themselves. True strength is self-sufficiency. The ability to withdraw, rebuild, and return sharper. When you become comfortable in your own silence, rejection loses its power. Betrayal no longer shocks you. Loss stops defining you, because you've already learned how to rebuild from nothing. This is the Machiavellian paradox. When you no longer need the world starts needing you. Isolation is where you audit everything your circle, your habits, your purpose. You begin to see how much energy you've wasted on people who drain you and offer nothing in return. Cut them. Replace gossip with reading, distraction with planning, reaction with foresight. Every hour alone is an investment in dominance. Most people avoid isolation because it exposes their weaknesses. Powerful men seek it because it reveals their potential. In solitude, ego dies and awareness takes its place. And awareness breeds control. You stop seeing life emotionally and start seeing it structurally. Relationships become alliances. Emotions become signals. Life becomes a chessboard instead of a battlefield. Machiavelli himself withdrew often not out of defeat, but to sharpen his understanding of human nature. He knew a mind that is constantly reacting cannot command. Treat your isolation as sacred. Wake early. Think deeply. Plan meticulously. Train your mind like a soldier. Discipline your thoughts. Track your progress. Visualize outcomes. You're not escaping the world. You're preparing to dominate it. The man who isolates strategically is feared because he cannot be tracked. No one knows what he's thinking, building, or planning, and mystery is magnetic. Comment. My silence builds empires. When you return from isolation, you return heavier, slower, sharper. The world doesn't recognize you, and that's the point. Now understand this. Solitude doesn't make you antisocial. It makes you anti-frivolous. You stop wasting energy on things that don't multiply your purpose. People will call you cold, distant, mysterious. Let them. Every accusation is an admission of their dependency. They need chaos. You need control. Which brings us to a line most men are afraid to cross. Selective ruthlessness. Ruthlessness is not cruelty. It's clarity. It's the ability to act decisively when emotion would cloud judgment. The world romanticizes kindness and forgiveness because weakness needs moral camouflage. But power belongs to those who know when to cut, when to strike, and when to walk away without explanation. Mercy without strategy is weakness. Forgiveness without boundaries is self-betrayal. Selective ruthlessness means knowing when to be warm for advantage and cold for preservation. It's not about harming others. It's about refusing to let sentiment sabotage your future. Indecision is a disease, and every second you hesitate to enforce your standards, someone is exploiting your delay. Comment: my boundaries are carved in stone. The ruthless man doesn't seek destruction. He seeks control. He rewards loyalty but never tolerates disrespect. He gives chances but never repetitions. Because repeated betrayal isn't compassion. It's stupidity. Machiavelli warned that men must be treated either generously or destroyed completely. Partial punishment invites revenge. Half measures create enemies. Final decisions eliminate them. When you act, act decisively. You remove what weakens you: people, habits, distractions without apology. You become your own executioner, cutting comfort in the name of growth. Weak men drown in empathy for those who would never save them. Strong men channel empathy into strategy. When you enforce consequences, the world recalibrates. When you let everything slide, you become background noise. Comment: I move with purpose, not permission. People may not like you. Let that go. Respect outlives popularity every time. The Machiavellian doesn't chase being liked. He commands being taken seriously. Ruthlessness is armor. It protects your energy from parasites and your vision from dilution. Wolves do not apologize for hunting. They hunt efficiently. Be the same. Measured. Intentional. Untamed. And in the next part, we go higher into psychological distance, inevitability, and the final transformation, becoming untouchable, where power no longer needs defense, and your presence alone bends reality around you. Psychological distance is where power becomes effortless. Most people live too close to everything, too close to opinions, too close to insults, too close to praise, too close to expectations that were never meant to guide their lives. They react to every emotional tremor like exposed nerves. And because of that, they are constantly exhausted, constantly defensive, constantly predictable. The Machiavellian does the opposite. He steps back. Psychological distance is not avoidance. It is elevation. It's the ability to be present without being entangled, to observe without absorbing, to engage without being owned. You are in the game, but you are not consumed by it. When someone insults you, you don't internalize it, you dissect it. When betrayal appears, you don't collapse, you calculate. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What does this reveal?" Emotion turns into data, and data gives you leverage. Comment: my mind is my fortress. This is where weak men misunderstand calm. They think stillness is passivity. In reality, stillness is a weapon. The calmer you are, the more chaotic your enemies become, because they rely on your reaction to orient themselves. Remove that, and they're lost. Psychological distance allows you to see the board. When you're too close to the game, emotions blur strategy. Step back, and patterns emerge. You begin predicting moves before they happen. You spot manipulation while others are still defending themselves. You stop fighting every battle and start winning wars without confrontation. This is how generals operate. Distance breeds patience. Patience breeds inevitability. The less you reveal, the more others expose. Silence becomes pressure. Calm becomes authority. Your lack of urgency signals superiority, not because you're better, but because you're not desperate. People start craving your reaction, your approval, your response, because distance creates tension, and tension creates gravity. Comment: I move above emotion, not within it. To master psychological distance, you must stop chasing closure, stop arguing for validation, stop trying to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. Let people think they've won if it preserves your focus. Distance is not detachment from humanity. It's detachment from triviality. You give loyalty to purpose, not people. Attention to progress, not drama. Those who lack discipline will call you cold because your serenity exposes their instability. Your calm forces them to confront their chaos. They'll either rise to your level or fall away. Both outcomes serve you. Now comes the shift most men never experience: inevitability. The greatest power a man can possess is not wealth, status, or force. It is inevitability. The sense that no matter what stands in his way, his rise cannot be stopped. This aura does not come from arrogance. It comes from consistency, from discipline practiced in silence, from self-belief forged without witnesses. The Machiavellian doesn't beg fate. He engineers it. He moves like a man whose victory is delayed, but guaranteed. His energy communicates a single message: I will win. If not now, then eventually. And inevitability terrifies people more than aggression ever could. Comment: my rise is inevitable. This aura is built in repetition where others quit. In mornings you rise when you don't want to. Nights you work while no one is watching. Sacrifices no one applauds. Every small win compounds until momentum turns into magnetism. You stop explaining yourself. Consistency becomes evidence. Execution becomes your language. People follow confidence, but they worship certainty. To cultivate inevitability, eliminate hesitation from your movements. Move with conviction even when clarity hasn't fully arrived. Doubt may visit your mind, but it must never live in your posture, your tone, or your eyes. You act like a storm walking calmly toward its destination. Comment: I execute. Therefore, I ascend. The inevitable man is calm because he already knows the ending. He's not racing, he's unfolding. While others chase attention, he builds legacy. While others seek excitement, he compounds endurance. Pressure no longer threatens him, it forges him. Resistance only sharpens his edge. Over time, his name begins to move before he does. Rooms quiet, not because he demands respect, but because it pre-exists him. Inevitability is built on delayed gratification, emotional control, solitude, and discipline. Most will never build it because they crave applause too early. But those who do become unhurried, unbothered, unstoppable. Failure stops being an enemy. Setbacks become strategy. Delays become training. Loss becomes leverage. You stop fearing time because time is working for you now. And that brings us to the final transformation, untouchable. In the next part, we finish the ascent where validation dies, standards rule, and you become a force that cannot be controlled, manipulated, or destroyed. To become untouchable is to exit the marketplace of approval forever. Most men spend their lives negotiating their worth, adjusting their tone, softening their standards, shrinking their presence so they can be accepted. They build walls to protect themselves, then wonder why they feel trapped. Untouchability is different. It's not about hiding, it's about elevation. You don't disappear, you rise beyond reach. Untouchability begins in the mind long before it manifests in the world. It's the discipline of moving through chaos without losing center, of standing inside noise and remaining unaffected. Praise can't intoxicate you. Insults can't poison you. Loss can't break you. Temptation can't derail you. Because nothing external has authority over your internal state anymore. The untouchable man is self-contained. He is his own source of validation, his own stabilizer, his own weapon. He doesn't depend on luck. He manufactures opportunity. He doesn't chase loyalty. He inspires it through presence. Comment: I am the calm in every storm. This level is built on 4 pillars: detachment, control, precision, and silence. Detachment keeps you emotionally neutral. Control ensures your reactions are strategic. Precision eliminates waste of time, words, and energy. Silence preserves mystery, and mystery commands respect. The untouchable man understands that exposure breeds vulnerability, so he reveals little and acts with intent. He is unpredictable not because he is chaotic, but because he is disciplined enough to never move emotionally. He controls access to his mind, his time, his energy. And because access is controlled, manipulation becomes impossible. Attacks lose relevance. Distractions lose power. The world can knock, but it cannot enter. This is why the truly powerful often seem distant. They haven't become cold. They've outgrown trivial conflict. Untouchable does not mean unreachable. It means unfazed. When you reach this level, people begin studying your composure to find their own. They imitate your stillness, admire your restraint, and fear your indifference. You become the reference point, the standard, the axis others orbit unconsciously. The principle is simple. When you depend on nothing, you lose nothing. When you fear nothing, you control everything. Comment: my mind bows to no one. Being untouchable is not about rejecting humanity. It's about mastering it. Pain still arrives, but it no longer defines you. Challenges still appear, but they no longer shake you. You stop chasing outcomes and start commanding results. You move through life like a force of nature, quiet, calculated, unstoppable. Consistency bends the world. And the untouchable man is consistent beyond measure. He doesn't need to explain his calm. He lets others wonder. He doesn't rush to defend himself. He lets results speak. Those who cannot be controlled cannot be destroyed. That is the final evolution of power. So value yourself relentlessly. Not with words, with standards. Act with strategy, not emotion. Move with calm ferocity. You are not surviving anymore. You are sculpting destiny with deliberate precision. Comment: I am untouchable. If this awakened the ruler within you, stay here. Watch closely. Because this path doesn't end, it compounds. And once you cross this threshold, there is no return to weakness. Welcome permanently to Machiavellian mode. You don't rise by demanding more from the world. You rise by demanding more from yourself. When you value yourself without apology, you stop chasing, stop explaining, stop bending. Your standards become your shield. Your silence becomes your signal, and your discipline becomes your identity. Power no longer feels aggressive, it feels inevitable. From this point forward, move with intention, not emotion. Protect your energy. Guard your mind. Choose strategy over comfort. The world will either adapt to your gravity or fall away from it. Either outcome confirms the same truth. You were never meant to be controlled.